Hello, Squirrel Squad listeners. We're on chapter 13 called The Sunny Side. I've won the wager, Tom. Didn't know there was one. Don't you remember you said Polly would be tired of her teaching and give it up in 3 months, and I said she wouldn't? Well, isn't she? Not a bit of it. I thought she was at one time and expected every day to have her come in with a long face and say she couldn't stand it. But somehow lately she's always bright and happy, seems to like her work, and don't have the tired, worried look she used to at first. The 3 months are out, so pay up, Tommy. All right, what will you have? You may make it gloves. I always need them, and Papa looks sober when I want money. There was a minute's pause as Fan returned to her practicing, and Tom relapsed into the reverie he was enjoying, seated astride of a chair with his chin on his folded arms. Seems to me Polly don't come here as often as she used to, he said presently. No, she seems to be very busy. Got some new friends, I believe. Old ladies, sewing girls, and things of that sort. I miss her, but know she'll get tired of being goody, and will come back to me before long. Don't be too sure of that, ma'am. Something in Tom's tone made Fan turn round and ask, What do you mean? Well, it strikes me that Sydney is one of Polly's new friends. Haven't you observed that she is uncommonly jolly, and don't that sort of thing account for it? Nonsense, said Fanny sharply. Hope it is, coolly returned Tom. What put it into your head? Demanded Fanny, twirling round again so that her face was hidden. Well, I keep meeting Sid and Polly circulating in the same directions. She looks as if she had found something uncommonly nice, and he looks as if all creation was getting Pollyfied pretty rapidly. Wonder you haven't noticed it. I have. It was Tom's turn to look surprised now, for Fanny's voice sounded strange to him. He looked at her steadily for a minute, but saw only a rosy ear and a bent head. A cloud passed over his face, and he leaned his chin on his arm again with a despondent whistle, as he said to himself, Poor Fan, both of us in a scrape at once. Don't you think it would be a good thing? Asked Fanny, after playing a bar or two very badly. Yes, for Sid. Not for Polly? Why, he's rich and clever and better than most of you good-for-nothing fellas. What can the girl expect? Can't say, but I don't fancy the match myself. Don't be a dog in the manger, Tom. Bless your little heart. I only take a brotherly sort of interest in Polly. She's a capital girl, and she ought to marry a missionary, or one of your reformer fellas, and be a shining light of some sort. I don't think setting up for a fine lady would suit her. I think it would, and I hope she'll have the chance, said Fanny, evidently making an effort to speak kindly. Good for you, Fan, and Tom gave an emphatic nod as if her words meant more than she suspected. Mind you, he added, I don't know anything, and only fancied there might be some flirtation going on, but I dare say it's nothing. Time will show. Then Fan began to sing, and Tom's horse came, so he departed with a very unusual demonstration of a gentle pat on the head as he said kindly, That's right, my dear, keep jolly. It isn't an elegant way of expressing sympathy, but it was hearty, and Fan thanked him for it, though she only said, Don't break your neck, Tommy. When he was gone, Fan's song ended as suddenly as it began, and she sat thinking, with varying expressions of doubt and trouble passing rapidly across her face. Well, I can't do anything but wait, she said, at last slamming the music book together with a desperate look. Yes, I can, she added after a minute. It's Polly's holiday. I can go and see her, and if there's anything in it, I shall find out. What is going on with this phone? Okay, I shall find out. Fanny dropped her face into her hands with a little shiver as she said that, then got up, looking as pale and resolute as if going to meet some dreadful doom, and putting on her things went away to Polly's as fast as her dignity would allow. Saturday morning was Polly's clearing up day, and Fan found her with a handkerchief tied over her head and a big apron on, just putting the last touches to the tidy little room, which was as fresh and bright as water, air, and a pair of hands could make it. All ready for company. I'll just whisk off my regimentals, and Polly, the maid, becomes Polly, the missus. It was lovely of you to come early. Take off your things. Another new bonnet, you extravagant wretch. How's your mother and Maudie? It's a nice day, and we'll have a walk, won't we? By the time Polly's welcome was uttered, she had got Fan on the little sofa beside her, and was smiling at her in such an infectious manner that Fan couldn't help smiling back. I came to see what you've been doing with yourself lately. You don't come and report, and I got anxious about you, said Fanny, looking into the clear eyes before her. I've been so busy, and I knew you wouldn't care to hear about my doings, for they aren't the sort you like, answered Polly. Your lessons didn't used to take up all your time. It's my private opinion that you are taking as well as giving lessons, miss, said Fan, putting on a playfully stern air to hide her real anxiety. Yes, I am, answered Polly soberly. In what? Love? A quick color came to Polly's cheeks as she laughed and said, looking away, No, friendship and good works. Oh, indeed. May I ask who is your teacher? I've more than one, but Miss Mills is head teacher. She instructs in good works. Who gives the friendship lessons? Such pleasant girls. I wish you knew them, Fan. So clever and energetic and kind and happy. It always does me good to see them, cried Polly with a face full of enthusiasm. Is that all? And Fan gave her a curious look of mingled disappointment and relief. There, I told you my doings would not interest you, and they don't. They sound flat and prosy after your brilliant adventures. Let's change the subject, said Polly, looking relieved herself. Dear me, which of our sweethearts sends us dainty bouquets of violets so early in the morning? Asked Fanny, suddenly spying the purple cluster in a graceful little vase on the piano. He sends me one every week. He knows I love them so, and Polly's eyes turned that way full of pride and pleasure. I'd no idea he was so devoted, said Fanny, stooping to smell the flowers and at the same time read a card that lay near them. You needn't plague me about it. Now you know it. I never speak of our fondness for one another because such things seem silly to other people. Will isn't all that Jimmy was to me, but he tries to be, and I love him dearly for it. It's her brother. Will? Fanny's voice quite startled Polly. It was so sharp and sudden, and her face grew red and pale all in a minute as she upset the little vase with the start she gave. Yes, of course. Who did you think I meant? Asked Polly, sopping up the water before it damaged her piano. Never mind, I thought you might be having a quiet little flirtation with somebody. I feel responsible, you know, because I told your mother I'd look after you. The flowers are all right. My head aches so I hardly know what I'm doing this morning. Fanny spoke fast and laughed uncomfortably as she went back to the sofa, wondering if Polly had told her a lie. Polly seemed to guess at her thoughts as she saw the card, and turning toward her, she held it up, saying with a conscious look in her eyes, You thought Mr. Sidney sent them? Well, you are mistaken, and the next time you want to know anything, please ask straight out. I like it better than talking at cross purposes. Now, my dear, don't be angry. I was only teasing you in fun. Tom took it into his foolish head that something was going on, and I felt a natural interest, you know. Tom, what does he know or care about my affairs? Demanded Polly. He met you two in the street pretty often, and being in a sentimental mood himself, got up a romance for you and Sidney. "Why, much obliged to him for his interest, but it's quite wasted, thank you." Fan's next proceeding gave her friendship another surprise, for being rather ashamed of herself, very much relieved, and quite at a loss what to say, she took refuge in a hysterical fit of tears, which changed Polly's anger into tenderness at once. "Is that the trouble she's been hiding all winter? Poor dear, I wish I'd known it sooner," thought Polly as she tried to soothe her with comfortable pats, sniffs of cologne, and sympathizing remarks upon the subject of headache, carefully ignoring that other feminine affliction, the heartache. "There, I feel better. I've been needing a good cry for some time, and now I shall be all right. Never mind it, Polly. I'm nervous and tired. I've danced too much lately, and dyspepsia makes me blue." And Fanny wiped her eyes and laughed. "Of course it does. You need rest and petting, and here I've been scolding you when I ought to have been extra kind. Now tell me what I can do for you," said Polly with a remorseful face. "Talk to me and tell me all about yourself. You don't seem to have as many worries as other people. What's the secret, Polly?" And Fan looked up with wet eyes and a wistful face at Polly, who was putting little dabs of cologne all over her head. "Well," said Polly slowly, "I just try to look on the bright side of things. That helps one amazingly. Why, you've no idea how much goodness and sunshine you can get out of the most unpromising things if you make the best of them." "I don't know how," said Fan despondently. "You can learn. I did. I used to croak and fret dreadfully and get so unhappy I wasn't fit for anything. I do it still more than I ought, but I try not to, and it gets easier, I find. Get atop of your troubles, and then they are half cured, Miss Mills says." "Everything is so contrary and provoking," said Fan petulantly. "Now what in the world have you to fret about?" asked Polly rather anxiously. "Quantities of things," began Fan, and then stopped, for somehow she felt ashamed to own that she was afflicted because she couldn't have a new set of furs, go to Paris in the spring, and make Mr. Sidney love her. She hunted up something more presentable and said in a despairing tone, "Well, Mother's very poorly. Tom and Trix quarrel all the time. Maud gets more and more willful every day, and Papa is worried about his affairs. A sad state of things, but nothing very desperate. Can't you lend a hand anywhere that might do good all around?" "No, I haven't the talent for managing people, but I see what ought to be done." "Well, don't wail about it. Keep yourself happy if you can. It will help other people see you cheerful." "Just what Tom said, keep jolly, but dear me, how can one when everything is so stupid and tiresome?" "If ever a girl needed work, it's you," cried Polly. "You began to be a young lady so early that you're tired of everything at 22. I wish you'd go at something, then you'd find how much talent and energy you really had. I know ever so many girls who are just like me, sick to death of fashionable life, but don't know what to take in its place. I'd like to travel, but Papa says he can't afford it, so I can only drag about and get on as I may. I pity you rich girls so much. You have so many opportunities and don't seem to know how to use them. I suppose I should do just the same in your place, but it seems now as if I could be very happy and useful with plenty of money." Getting tongue-tied. "You are that without it. There, I won't croak any more. Let us go and take a good walk, and don't you tell anyone how I came and cried like a baby." "Never," said Polly, putting on her bonnet. I ought to go and make calls, said Fanny, but I don't feel now as if I ever wanted to see any of the girls again. Dreadful state of mind, isn't it? Suppose you come and see some of my friends instead. They're not fine or ceremonious, but lively, odd, and pleasant. Come, it will amuse you. I will, cried Fanny, whose spirits seemed improved by the shower. Nice little lady, isn't she? Added Fan as she caught sight of Miss Mills on their way out, sitting at a table piled with work, and sewing away with an energy that made the gray curls vibrate. Saint Mahitable, I call her. Now, there's a rich woman who knew how to get happiness out of her money, said Polly as they walked away. She was poor till she was nearly 50. Then a comfortable fortune was left her, and she knew just how to use it. That house was given her, but instead of living in it all alone, she filled it with poor gentlefolks who needed neat, respectable homes, but couldn't get anything comfortable for their little money. I'm one of them, and I know the worth of what she does for me. 2 old widow ladies live below me, several students overhead. Poor Mrs. Keene and her lame boy have the back parlor, and Jenny the little bedroom next Miss Mills. Each pays what they can. That's independent and makes us feel better, but that dear woman does 1,000 things that money can't pay for, and we feel her influence all through the house. I'd rather be married and have a home of my own, but next to that, I should like to be an old maid like Miss Mills. Polly's sober face and emphatic tone made Fanny laugh, and at the cheery sound, a young girl pushing a baby carriage looked round and smiled. "What lovely eyes," whispered Fanny. "Yes, that's little Jane," returned Polly, adding when she had passed with a nod and a friendly, "Don't get tired, Jenny. We help each other at our house, and every morning Jenny takes Johnny Keene out when she goes for her own walk. That gives his mother time to rest, and does both the children good, and keeps things neighborly. Miss Mills suggested it, and Jenny's so glad to do anything for anybody. It's a pleasure to let her." "I've heard of Miss Mills before, but I should think she would get tired to death sitting there making hoods and petticoats day after day," said Fanny, after thinking over Jenny's story for a few minutes, and seeing the girls seem to bring it nearer and make it more real to her. "She doesn't sit there all the time. People come to her with their troubles, and she goes to them with all sorts of help, from soap and soup to shrouds for the dead and comfort for the living. I go with her sometimes, and it's more exciting than any play to see and hear the lives and stories of the poor." "How can you bear the dreadful sights and sounds, the bad air, and the poverty that can't be cured?" "It isn't all dreadful. There are good and lovely things among them, if one only has eyes to see them. It makes me grateful and contented, shows me how rich I am, and keeps me ready to do all I can for these poor souls." "My good Polly," and Fanny gave her friend's arm an affectionate squeeze, wondering if it was this alone that had worked the change in Polly. "Oh, mercy. You've seen 2 of my friends, Miss Mills and Jenny. Now I'll show you 2 more," said Polly, presently, as they reached a door, and she led the way up several flights of public stairs. "Rebecca Jeffrey is a regularly splendid girl, full of talent. She won't let us call it genius. She'll be famous some day, I know. She's so modest and yet so intent on her work. Lizzie Small is an engraver and designs the most delightful little pictures. Becky and she live together and take care of one another in true Damon and Pythias style. This studio is their home. They work, eat, sleep, and live here, going halves and everything. They're all alone in the world, but as happy and independent as birds, real friends whom nothing will part. Let a lover come between them and their friendship won't last, said Fanny. I think it will. Take a look at them and you'll change your mind, answered Polly, tapping at a door on which two modest cards were tacked. Come in, said a voice, and obeying, Fanny found herself in a large, queerly furnished room, lighted from above and occupied by two girls. One stood before a great clay figure in a corner. This one was tall, with a strong face, keen eyes, short curly hair, and a fine head. Fanny was struck at once by this face and figure, though the one was not handsome and the other half hidden by a great pinafore covered with clay. At a table where the light was clearest sat a frail-looking girl with a thin face, big eyes, and pale hair, a dreamy, absorbed little person who bent over a block, skillfully wielding her tools. Becky and Bess, how do you do? This is my friend Fanny Shaw. We're out on a rampage. So go on with your work and let us lazy ones look on and admire. As Polly spoke, both girls looked up and nodded smilingly. Bess gave Fan the one easy chair. Becky took an artistic survey of the new corner with eyes that seemed to see everything. Then each went on with her work and all began to talk. You're just what I want, Polly. Pull up your sleeve and give me an arm while you sit. The muscles here aren't right, and you've just got what I want, said Becky, and slapping the round arm of the statue at which Fanny was gazing with awe. How do you get on? Asked Polly, throwing off her cloak and rolling up her sleeves as if going to washing. Slowly. The idea is working itself clear, and I follow as fast as my hands can. Is the face better, do you think? Said Becky, taking off a wet cloth and showing the head of the statue. How beautiful it is, cried Fanny, staring at it with increased respect. What does it mean to you? Asked Rebecca, turning to her with a sudden shine in her keen eyes. Well, I don't know whether it's meant for a saint or a muse, a goddess or a fate, but to me it is only a beautiful woman, bigger, lovelier, and more imposing than any woman I ever saw, answered Fanny slowly, trying to express the impression the statue made upon her. Rebecca smiled brightly, and Bess looked round to nod approvingly, but Polly clapped her hands and said, Well done, Fan. I didn't think you'd get the idea so well, but you have, and I'm proud and am proud of your insight. Now I'll tell you, for Becky will let me, since you have paid her the compliment of understanding her work. Some time ago we got into a famous talk about what women should be, and Becky said she'd show us her idea of the coming woman. There she is, as you say, bigger, lovelier, and more imposing than any we see nowadays. And at the same time, she is a true woman. See what a fine forehead, yet the mouth is both firm and tender, as if she could say strong, wise things, as well as teach children and kiss babies. We couldn't decide what to put in the hands as the most appropriate symbol. What do you say? Give her a scepter. She would make a fine queen, answered Fanny. No, we have enough of that. Women have been called queens a long time. But all right. Come on now. It's stuck. Oh, come on. Queen's a long time, but the kingdom given them isn't worth... Oh, no. It just went out on me. I guess I'll stop there. Doggone it. Sometimes you just want the old-fashioned book. Lordy, lordy, and it went back to the beginning of the chapter. Let me see if I can find where I was. Okay, here we are. No, we've had enough of that. Women have been called queens a long time, but the kingdom given them isn't worth ruling, answered Rebecca. And I will stop there, because that's 25 minutes. And hope there's plenty more for a part 2. Okie dokie. Y'all be sweet. Don't be ugly. See you later. Love ya. Bye-bye.